Hello and welcome to Tasmania. I'm now in Strahan, a small harbour town on the west coast of the island. Today I'm going to travel on the super scenic West Coast Wilderness Railway half-day return trip from Strahan to Dubbil Barril in Wilderness Carriage, and then tomorrow I'll head to Queenstown to do the Queenstown to Dubbil Barril return trip in Heritage Carriage. It should be two really fun and beautiful rides. Let's go! Strahan is a small harbourside town nestled on the shores of massive Macquarie Harbour, located 301 kilometres northwest of Hobart and 41 kilometres southwest of Queenstown. It was originally developed as a port of access for the mining settlements and timber industry around this region. For a substantial part of 19th century and early 20th century, the port was also used for regular shipping of passengers and cargoes. Today, Strahan has become a famous tourist destination on the west coast. As you can see, the former port has become a dock for different cruise companies that take in Macquarie Harbour and the lower Gordon River. On the other side of the harbour is Regatta Point Railway Station, the southern terminus of the West Coast Wilderness Railway. The West Coast Wilderness Railway is a reconstruction of the former 34.5km long Mount Lyell Railway between Queenstown and Regatta Point. The railway is significant because it uses the Abt System to conquer the mountainous terrain through the rainforest. The original railway began operations in 1897 as the only link between the mining town of Queenstown and the port of Strahan. Regatta Point was also a junction station between the private Mount Lyell Railway and the government railway line which passes through Strahan on the way to Lyell when it was operational. An earlier building at the station location was burnt down in 1900. The current building was rebuilt for the West Coast Wilderness Railway. The company currently has strict COVID protocols to ensure the safety of passengers and the staff. The ticket office opens 1 hour before the train's departure. Upon arrival, you are required to have your temperature taken. If you register as having a temperature of over 37.5 degrees, you will not be able to travel but will be issued with a refund. The station is split into two parts. On one side of the building is the cafe, which is warm and cozy and offers a wide range of food. On the other side is a souvenir shop and a ticket office to collect your tickets. Pre-COVID, the company offers a range of full and half-day tours with options to include activities such as heritage tours, whitewater rafting and scenic helicopter flights. The railway-only experiences include a half-day river and rainforest return trip from Strahan to Dubbil Barril, a half-day wreck and gorge return journey from Queenstown to Dubbil Barril, and a full-day Queenstown Explorer tour from Strahan to Queenstown and back, which allows you to travel on the entire railway line in one day. I was going to do the full-day Queenstown Explorer, however the tour is not available for the remainder of the year due to some mechanical issues with one of the locomotives. Therefore, in this video I will travel from Strahan to Dubbil Barril today and Queenstown to Dubbil Barril tomorrow. There are also two different travel classes, Wilderness Carriage and Heritage Carriage. You will learn the differences by the end of this video. This is my ticket. This morning I'll be travelling in Wilderness Carriage. As it is still early, I decided to have breakfast at a cafe. I was going to sit outside on the platform, but the weather is still too cold for my comfort, so I picked a table indoor next to the window. Here is the menu. Guess what I ordered? Waffles! I picked two waffles served with cinnamon apple, coconut crumble and maple syrup, all for $16.90. Given how isolated Strahan is, this is quite a good price. The dish should also come with vanilla ice cream, but I think the chef probably forgot to give it to me. As the portion of the dish is quite big, I didn't bother asking them to fix their mistake. I spent most of my winter in Queensland and the Northern Territory this year. The temperature in Strahan still feels like winter to me. This waffle is a perfect breakfast for a winter morning in my opinion. These cinnamon apple slices were still warm when it was served. The coconut crumb is sweet and crunchy. The waffles are huge. I was almost full after finishing one. The whole dish is already quite sweet. If you have a sweet tooth, you can add the maple syrup on top of your waffles. Overall, it was a great dish. For drink, if this is your first time in Tasmania, you gotta pick the Hart's Tasmanian flavoured sparkling mineral water. It has lots of flavours. My favourites are creamy, soda and orange. The locomotive is stored in a hangar opposite to the station. While I was having breakfast, the drivers were getting it ready for today's service. One of the highlights of this railway experience is to see the locomotive being turned on a manually operated turntable. You will have 2 opportunities to witness it in each tour. The West Coast Wilderness Railway currently has 3 of the 5 former Mount Lyell Mining and Railway Company steam locomotives, Locomotive 1, 3 and 5, preserved in operational condition. Locomotive number 2 is expected to get back to service very soon after completing a general repair. The company also has 2 diesel locomotives. The Strahan to Dubbil Barril return trip is generally hauled by a diesel locomotive. Today is no exception. This diesel locomotive was one of the 2 locomotives purchased by the Mount Lyell Mining and Railway Company in 1953. Delivered by Vulcan Foundry in the UK, they were the narrow gauge version of the British Railway Class 04. The 2 locomotives were originally numbered as 2405 and 2406 and worked primarily between Strahan and Dubbil Barril. When the railway line was closed in 1963, 2405 was sold to the Emu Bay Railway as number 22, while this 2406 went to the Tasmanian Government Railways as V13. V13 was written off in 1986 and sold to Zigzag Railway in New South Wales in 1992. In 2001, V13 was sold back to the West Coast Wilderness Railway, renumbered to locomotive D-2 and returned to its original role to operate between Strahan and Dubbil Barril. Although the locomotives are original, the passenger carriages were newly built when the line was reopened in 2002, providing passengers comfort for year-round operation. This morning the train consists of 3 carriages, 2 wilderness carriage with 1 heritage carriage in the middle. You can consider the wilderness carriage as first class. One distinctive feature is that there's a balcony on one side of the carriage, giving passengers an open 270-degree view of the scenery outside.
Hello, how you going?
Hello.
You see, the heritage carriage does not have a balcony. In addition, the wilderness carriage passengers are welcomed with a complimentary glass of Tasmanian sparkling wine, and some delicious Tasmanian produce are served throughout the journey.
You are 17 and your seat number 23, which is here. It'll be handy for you having the camera.
Yep.
Yes. Now, would you like to start your day with a big bang and a champagne, an orange juice, or half and half?
The champagne, please.
Champagne, here we go.
Boarding commenced at 8:30, half an hour before departure. The seats in wilderness carriage are leather booth seats. Each booth seats 2 people. Due to COVID restrictions, if you are travelling alone, you will have the whole booth to yourself. My seat is at the front of the carriage. I have the whole table to myself and the windows are huge. Wow, I'm very impressed. What's more, there are power plugs under the table. Cheers! Let the journey begin. In wilderness carriage, a morning tea and a light lunch is provided, along with complimentary water, tea, coffee and hot chocolate. You can also purchase soft drinks and alcoholic beverages throughout the trip. The staff on board run a very detailed commentary on the railway and the resilient people who lived and worked along the line. It's impossible for me to include everything that they say, so if you would like to know everything about the railway, it's better for you to come and travel onto yourself. The rest of this video will be focusing on the experience, and hopefully by the end I'll be able to help you decide which tour and which carriage you would like to travel in.
As we depart, it's a good practice to give everyone a wave. We're leaving Regatta Point Station. This was the original station. And welcome on board, and a big thank you. Normally we have a thank you at the end of the trip. Today, with the wave, this could be a one-way trip. As we move into uncharted areas that were impossible to get through. This part of Tasmania was referred to as the Wild West, and it might sound like something out of a movie, but just imagine what it was like at that turn of the century in the 1890s. It rained non-stop most of the time, and it was all new for these people as they came here. Long days, treacherous terrain, and not knowing whether they'd get to the end of the day.
Each carriage is assigned with a knowledgeable car captain. They are responsible for looking after each passenger and can answer any question you may have. Soon after leaving Regatta Point, a canapé and morning tea is served. The ride is very bumpy. I did my best in keeping my hands to be as steady as possible. I believe everything on board is freshly made from the station cafe every day, using almost 100% Tasmanian produce. The canapé was appetizing, the wallaby was very tender. I could have 10 more if they let me. The house-made scone is one of their signature dishes. If you didn't travel in wilderness carriage, there are limited amount available at the cafe. The scone was served warm and it tasted as good as it looked. The highlight for me is the blackberry jam. It tasted very natural. Accompanied with Tasmanian cream, they made the scone flavoursome. Again, I only wish I could have more.
So in those days, the King River, which we're going along now,
For drink, I asked for a cup of Earl Grey with milk and sugar.
You need sugar?
Which is basically
Really?
Hobart connect.
You're like a sourpuss to
When they
me.
finally came back,
They actually have a wide range of teas on board, including English breakfast, peppermint, jasmine, and a few more. The interior of the carriage is decorated in retro style but with modern features. There are windows on the roof to add natural light to the carriage. The carriage is air conditioned and blankets are provided to keep people warm. It takes approximately 15 minutes for the train to travel from Regatta Point to our first set-down station, Lower Landing. Yes, the whole line is only 34.5 kilometers long, but due to tough terrains and lots of curves and cuttings, the train's top speed on this line is 25 kilometers per hour, and it runs at 5 to 15 kilometers per hour on most sections. But who's in a hurry on this train? The slow speed gives you time to soak in the views around you. The name for today's half-day trip is River and Rainforest, because between Lowana and Dubbil Barril, the track is built alongside the river through the rainforest. The terrain is pretty much flat. Let's check out the balcony. On the way to Dubbil Barril, my carriage is placed right behind the locomotive, so the view is mostly blocked. But on the positive side, I get to see what's going on in the cab. As a train enthusiast, it's not a bad trade-off. Plus on the way back, the locomotive will be moved to the other end of the train. I'll get a balcony with open views by then. "15 minutes passed quickly and we arrived at Lower Landing. It's a very beautiful carriage, isn't it? At Lower Landing, there's a very short boardwalk, and at the end of it, you'll have a great view of the station. Beehives are placed in the forest around Tipukana Plateau. At lower landing, you will get a chance to taste the wild honeys they produce or purchase any refreshments that you like at the tea room. Both wilderness and heritage carriages are not equipped with toilet, so it's a good opportunity to use the facility at each station before the train departs. We stopped here for around 20 minutes. Now let us continue our journey to Dubbil Barril. There are many bridges along the route. It's just incredible to see how the men in the late 19th century were able to build a railway line through the ancient rainforest and mountains in Tasmania's rugged, wet and extremely isolated west coast in just a few years. Here we are at Dubbil Barril. It's the midway point of the railway line. If you are travelling on the river and rainforest trip, this is your second and final chance to see the locomotive being manually turned. And voila! The last carriage is now the first carriage and my carriage is now the last carriage. Dubbil Barril is situated on the northern bank of the King River. When Mount Lyell railway line was operational, the stopping place gave travellers the chance to explore the area adjacent. There's a rainforest boardwalk which takes around 10 minutes to complete. We only stopped here for 15 to 20 minutes, and I spent most of the time watching the locomotive being turned. I didn't get much time to do the boardwalk, but I'll come back here tomorrow. I did quickly run to the lookout to check out the view though. Does the river look polluted to you? Well, here's why.
All this are the tailings from the mining industry for over 100 years that washed down the river and settled in these areas. Now, for probably 20 or 30 years ago, the river was classed as a dead river. Nothing lived in it, nothing grew around it because of all those chemicals and poisons that come down. But over the last 10, 15 years, slowly, they've revegetated. As you can see, there's vegetation growing slowly, and they've slowly noticed that it's slowly improving.
Passing Dubbil Barril, the track will go over a mountain at a ruling grade of 1 in 20. This is where the line starts using Abt System to conquer the terrain. I'll talk more about it when we travel on the line tomorrow. For the time being, let's head back to Strahan. I now have the best seat on the whole train. I got a 270-degree view just from my seat.
So welcome on board as we depart Dubbil Barril. Some of you may have noticed the spelling looked unusual, and deep down no one really knows why it's spelled that way, but there is a couple of theories behind it. I'll give you three. Probably a few more than that. I'll give you three.
This is the view from the balcony. There's no words that can describe how beautiful the scenery is. On the way back, everyone also has to switch seat with a person sitting on the other side, so everyone gets to see the views from both sides. While we were exploring Dubbil Barril, the staff sanitized our tables and seats and prepared us a light lunch. The soup of the day is pumpkin soup. It tastes very simple. I can easily tell that the only main ingredient in the soup is pumpkin, plus honey and pumpkin seeds of course. It just feels like the soup that my mum would make at home. Very lovely. You can also get this soup from the cafe at Regatta Point. Accompanying the soup is a fresh bread roll with olive oil and Tasmanian bush dust. The bread roll was served cold. Bush dust is a mixture of Tasmanian native pepper berries, macadamia nuts, bush tomatoes, herbs and spices, and the original way of having it is to have on crunchy bread with olive oil, exactly like this. Yum. The weather in Tasmania, particularly on the west coast, is very unpredictable. It changes every second. It could be sunny a second ago and suddenly a heavy rain will just come out of nowhere. Then a few minutes later, it's sunny again. So if the weather forecast predicts that it's gonna be raining all day, don't be disappointed. Chances are the rain will not stick too long. Back in Lower Landing, here's a quick look of what the Heritage Carriage is like. The booth seats are covered in fabric instead of leather, and there's only a small cocktail table instead of a big steady table. You'll find out more tomorrow. A sweet finish for the day, pepperberry and gin chocolate truffle. The car captain has been teasing us about this chocolate for the whole day. West Coast Wilderness Railway partnered with Federation Chocolate to create this unique flavour that celebrates the pepperberry tree, found locally in the rainforest that surrounds us. The chocolate is not sold at the cafe nor at anywhere else in this world. The only way to have another is to travel on this train again. What does it taste like? Aha, you have to try it yourself. It's very unique. In Wilderness Carriage, we were also given a postcard. If you filled it out and hand it back to the staff, they would put on a stamp for you and post it to anywhere in this world.
And if you'd like to give your postcard back to be filled out, I'm going to send it away for you free of charge anywhere in the world. We're going to break the culture barrier.
This is the original iron bridge built in 1898. Here's a comparison of the views you'll see between Wilderness Carriage and Heritage Carriage. From the balcony you get to see what the whole bridge looks like, but in Heritage Carriage you can only see part of it. Have you wondered why the windows can't be opened? Well, look here. At many sections, the train is literally only a few centimeters from the rocks and the trees. If you are standing on the balcony, definitely don't put your head or your hands outside the carriage. So this is pretty much the end of the river and rainforest trip in wilderness carriage. Is it worth the money to travel in wilderness? Well, you can't compare unless you have travelled in heritage carriage as well, therefore I'll let you know my opinion at the end of the video. As of November 2021, this 4-hour return journey costs $120 per adult, $59 per child, or $270 per family in heritage carriage, and $189 per adult and $130 per child in wilderness carriage. There's no family discount in wilderness carriage. You can either book the trip online, book at the ticket office, or book over the phone. Due to popular demand, it is recommended to book your trip 4 to 6 weeks in advance in order to avoid disappointment.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we've survived our trip and we're heading back to Regatta Point. If you enjoyed your day today on the West Coast Wilderness Railway, let your friends and family know. If not, keep it to yourself and hopefully we'll see you back again. On behalf of the staff, thank you very much for the day.
Welcome back to Regatta Point in Strahan. Thank you so much for still watching this video, hopefully you have enjoyed it so far. I'll see you tomorrow in Queenstown. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you get all your footage that you wanted?
Yes, I'll come back again tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. Bye. Queenstown's history has long been tied to the mining industry. This mountainous area was first explored in 1862. It was long after that when alluvial gold was discovered at Mount Lyell, prompting the formation of the Mount Lyell Gold Mining Company in 1881. In 1892, the mine began searching for copper. The company later built the Mount Lyell Railway in 1897 to transport copper from the mine at Queenstown to the port of Strahan. Until 1932, when a road link to Hobart was completed, this railway was the only access through to Queenstown. Today I'll be travelling from Queenstown to Dubbil Barril on the other half of the railway line that we didn't travel on yesterday. The Mount Lyell Railway ceased operation in 1963 due to increasing maintenance costs and improvement of road access to the west coast from the north. Most of the railway was removed, leaving only a few items untouched. The railway was totally rebuilt over the railway formation in 2002. This Queenstown station was built in the 2000s on the site of the original station yard. Queenstown is the headquarters of the West Coast Wilderness Railway. It has a much larger cafe and an all-weather roof with 2 platforms. Inside the station building, there's a museum telling the history of the railway, along with a souvenir shop and a ticket office.
Good morning.
Hello.
How are you today?
Good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Oh,
The ticket looks almost identical to yesterday's, except today I'm travelling in heritage carriage. The railway line between Queenstown and Dubbil Barril is the hardest part to construct. From Strahan to Dubbil Barril, the terrain is pretty much flat. But from Dubbil Barril to Queenstown, the line has to climb over a 250 meter tall mountain. On today's section, you'll be able to see the use of Abt System for the train to operate in steep grades. Although being built in the 21st century, Queenstown Station still gives people a heritage feeling. I think it's mostly because of the use of warm colour tone. It's a very beautiful station. The locomotive that will be hauling the carriages today is a famous Mount Lyell Abt Locomotive No. 1. It was the first of the 5 rack steam locomotives purchased for the railway line, built by Dubbil Company in Glasgow in 1896 and shipped in a dismantled state to Strahan the same year. No. 1 was different to other locomotives because it had its water tank across the rear of the cab and small coal bunkers ahead of the cab front wall. The locomotive was converted from coal burning to oil burning in the 1950s. When the railway was closed in 1963, No. 1 was gifted to the West Coast Pioneers Museum in Zeehan until being restored and returned to West Coast Wilderness Railway in the early 2000s. 2 further heavy overhauls was conducted in 2010 and 2020 to keep No. 1 in healthy condition. It's an honour to be able to travel in this locomotive today. This morning's train also consists of 3 carriages. However, instead of having 2 wilderness carriages, there is only one at the back with 2 heritage carriages at the front. Welcome aboard! Again, due to COVID restrictions, I get a whole booth to myself.
Comply with our social distancing regulations, but also you'll notice once we're up and moving that our train is quite authentic.
The interior of the heritage carriage is as beautiful as a wilderness carriage. There are windows on the roof to maximize natural light, as well as blankets and air conditioning to keep you warm. The seats also have the same width and legroom, except they are covered in fabric instead of leather. The 3 biggest differences are: 1. There's no balcony outside the carriage, but being the first carriage behind the locomotive, I wonder if I could stand up and use the window later. 2. Because there's no meal service in heritage carriage, the table is much smaller. And lastly, there's no power plug below the table.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, now we're up and moving. Once again, I'd like to welcome you aboard the West Coast Wilderness Railway.
The total journey time today is 4 hours and 15 minutes, 15 minutes longer than yesterday's trip. That's because we will stop at 2 stations on our way to Dubbil Barril. The first station is Lynchford.
But also the locals have nicknamed this place Lynchford. I recommend staying on the pathway so you don't find out how it got such a nickname. Toilets here at Lynchford are up on the platform. The whistle of the engine will be your cue to get back aboard. We will be here for around 25 minutes. We won't be stopping here on the way back, so make sure you see everything now you want to see. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Lynchford. I mean Lynchford.
If you head down to the front of the platform across the tracks, you will have a great view of the whole train. There's also a bridge across Queen River which offers a pretty good view. Do you remember why the water looks so polluted? When people discovered gold in Queenstown, Lynchford in its early days was a gold mining location. There's a museum behind the platform where you can have a hands-on experience on how to pan for gold here.
So you want to turn it around so the ridges are away, and then dip it ridges first into the table at a really high angle and just let everything wash out, because the gold will sit on the bottom and catch on those ridges. So just keep washing it in and out until you get to pretty much nothing in the bottom, and once you get down to that level, if you've got gold, you will see it. Alas, mine does not have gold in it, so that's a very bad demonstration.
The train will not stop at Lynchford again on the return journey to Queenstown, so make sure you check out everything you wanted to see. After Lynchford, the train begins to climb up the mountain. This section has an average gradient of 1/16, which means every 16 meters that the train travels, it will climb up 1 meter. So when building the railway line, how did the engineers make sure that the locomotive wouldn't be turned into a roller coaster? Well, they used a system called the Abt System.
It was a system that was called the Abt System, taking its name from its founder, Dr. Rahman Abt. On paper, it's quite a simple system. In between the two regular rails is a third toothed rail known as the rack rail. Underneath the locomotives, two large cogwheels look a little bit like oversized clock cogs. They're known as the pinion wheels, and they're powered by a separate set of steam cylinders. Now the pinions under the engine are fixed. They don't raise, they don't lower, they sit in the same position until you put steam through them though, they don't start turning. But before the start of the rack, you start to put steam through, you get them all up and moving, and then crack on the ground gives way. So if a tooth under the engine hits a tooth in the rack rail, there's some large springs underneath the start of it and smaller teeth, so that'll force the tooth into its relevant groove, and then in a very short space of time the loco is all locked in, and then all it has to do is keep winding those wheels up to the top of the hill, rather like the way two cogs wind in a clock. So looking at the right hand side as we travel through, you'll begin to notice how far up the trees we go. By the time we reach the top of the hill, you'll be looking more at the tree tops rather than the tree trunks. But also as we are climbing the hill, it's a great chance to listen to our full engine, because you might just hear us saying something. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. Made it to the top of the hill. Now we started at 90 metres above sea level, climbed up to 250 metres, so a net climb of 160 metres, and we've done that in the space of 3 kilometres. So it's been a pretty tough climb for our little engine. She's got a 3,000 litre water tank that would have drained most of that just getting up to the top of the hill. Luckily for her though, we're coming into our next station of Rinadeena, and in the native dialect, Rinadeena translates to as raindrops, which is pretty appropriate because we do receive 3 metres of rain a year.
Rinadeena is the highest point on the entire line. The bridge over the tracks provides a good view of the tracks that we just travelled on, and on the other side is the overhead view of the station and the train. At Rinadeena, you can also have a close look at the Abt fittings on the track. We stopped here for quite a while. There's a tea room for you to purchase different snacks and drinks to consume either now or later on board. Hot snacks including freshly baked mini pies and sausage rolls are $2 each.
So from this point in time, it's going to be all downhill until we reach that station.
After Rinadeena is a continuous downhill into Dubbil Barril. The Abt mechanism on the steam locomotive is still required in order to prevent the train from losing control of the speed. The average gradient in this section is 1 in 20, but the steepest gradient can be 1 in 12, making it the steepest gradient climbed by a regular train in the Southern Hemisphere. As the track is built on the side of the hill, the view from the right hand side is mostly just the face of the hill. But on the left hand side, the view is much more spectacular. Luckily, I'll get the left hand side seat on the way back. Just before arriving into Dubbil Barril, we approached the most scenic part of the entire railway line.
You're welcome to go down either end and have a look as well, just don't open the doors.
West Coast Wilderness Railway named the trip from Queenstown to Dubbil Barril Wreck and Gorge. The Wreck certainly stands for the Abt System, and the Gorge is the stunning King River Gorge. You definitely need to have your camera ready when the train approaches this section. I wish they could build a viewing deck here and allow us to get off the train to take a quick photo.
So we aren't too far out now from our next station stop of Dubbil Barril, and this is the turning point in our journey today, the point in time where we can turn around and head back towards Queenstown. Here at Dubbil Barril there are toilets out on the platform. Most importantly of all, this is where we get to play my favourite game of the day, musical chairs. Now whichever side you're currently sitting on, give a wave to the people sitting across from you. If you've got people sitting across from you, of course. After your time at Dubbil Barril, you're going to be swapping over with them.
Welcome back to Dubbil Barril. This is the same Dubbil Barril that I visited yesterday. Now I have finally travelled on the entire 34.5km railway line. As I focused on watching the turning of the locomotive yesterday, this time I will do the rainforest walk first. This 10-minute loop walk allows you to escape into the rainforest and have a breath of the fresh air. I believe the whole walk is wheelchair accessible. When I came back, I was lucky enough to still be able to witness the turning of the locomotive. On the Wreck and Gorge tour, this will be your first chance of seeing it being turned. If you miss this one, you will have another opportunity after the train arrives back into Queenstown. I'm normally not a fan of the wet weather, it makes my shoes wet and the air humid, but I have to say the rain has made the scenery extra beautiful today. Time to head back to Queenstown. I've now got the other side of the window seat. Also, as the locomotive is now in front of us, the car captain allowed me to use the back door window to film these beautiful footages.
ladies and gentlemen, we've made it back to the top of the hill, back to Rinadeena once again. Now everything will still be here that was here before. We'll still have the little kiosk open, still got the air walk, but as always, the whistle of the engine's your cue to get back aboard. Welcome back to Rinadeena.
Yeah, you're meant to get one for there, but
It's finally time to draw a conclusion. First of all, which carriage should we choose? The Wilton's carriage has bigger tables, leather seats, a complimentary welcome drink, morning tea, light lunch and unlimited tea, coffee, hot chocolate and water. In addition, there's a balcony for you to have a 270-degree view of the scenery outside. Is it worth the extra $67? I think it's totally worth it. Queenstown is almost a 4-hour drive from Hobart and a 2-hour drive from Burnie. If you manage to make your way to the west coast, I would highly recommend you to do the Wilton's carriage to have a full experience of this railway. Secondly, which tour should you choose? I'd say the Queenstown Explorer full-day experience would be the best. However, if the service still isn't running when you visit here, then I would recommend you to do what I did, travel on both River and Rainforest and Wreck and Gorge. If you only have limited time or budget, then I think you should do Wreck and Gorge. The Abt System, the Gold Panning and the King River Gorge are all included in this tour, and in my opinion it's the most scenic heritage railway ride I've ever experienced in Australia. I know $120 and $189 sound expensive for a 4-hour trip. Putting the beautiful scenery aside, look at the locomotive. Abt number 1 is 125 years old. It's a moving history. You never know if you'll still be able to travel on it after 10 or 20 years. It will be an experience that money can't buy in the future.
Now I have rather neglected to tell you the happy story of number 3. I feel this is a time to give it to you. She was the first of the restored Abt steam engines. So with a tear in the eye of all of the locals who remember this up and running, number 3 proudly pulled away from Queenstown Station, hailing an entirely new era for the former Mount Lyell line. And it's a little part of our history that we're so honoured and privileged to share with you today. Now I hope you've enjoyed your journey with us as much as we've enjoyed sharing it with you. But as we're pulling into the station, if you miss the turning of the engine at Dubbil Barril, if you head to the left you'll find some double doors. Very shortly they're going to be turning it around again. Fantastic photos with Queenstown behind you. But on that note, welcome back to Queenstown Station, and I hope you enjoyed your day with us here today.
thank you.
Welcome back to Queenstown. Shortly after arrival, the locomotive will be manually turned at the turntable. This is your second and final chance to see this operation on the Wreck and Gorge tour. It's almost 2 PM. I'm feeling hungry, so where should I have lunch? Of course, at the Trex Cafe. It opens 7 days a week for breakfast and lunch and 5 nights a week for dinner. I don't think there are any tourists at night time, so this place must be popular for the locals too. Being adjacent to the platform, you can look at the colourful carriages while having your meal. Heaters are everywhere in Tasmania. The indoor space is fairly warm. There are also plenty of outdoor space if you don't mind the cold. Guess what I ordered? The cheeseburger. Yep, I feel like trying the Tasmanian beef today. The portion is pretty good for $16.50. The bun was lightly toasted, it was warm. The tomato looks incredibly fresh and the lettuce is crispy. The chips also appear to be freshly fried and well seasoned. I also love the side of tomato sauce, it's essential for me. The beef patty is a little dry, but I can tell they used very good beef. Overall, I love how fresh the ingredients are. The meal tastes pretty good and the price is very fair. I would come back again if I had a chance. After visiting the west coast, I decided to head north to Burnie. The reason is there's a little penguin observation centre in the CBD just west of Burnie Beach. Every night at dusk from October to March, regardless of the weather, you will find knowledgeable local volunteers provide a free guided experience, talk to you about penguins, answer questions and help you view and photograph without flashes. I think these penguins are really cute. This place is a must visit if you find yourself in Burnie.
These two actually have both parents going out to get food at the moment.
So this is the babysitter.
So this would be one that's already come back from the water, most likely.
I normally see them against the side of the nails. Actually, they're bigger than
So these are fairy penguins. They're just correct.
Thank you so much for watching this long video. Hopefully you found my content being helpful. If you have enjoyed it, please don't forget to hit the like button and please subscribe to my channel for more train and flight reviews. I'll see you all in my next video.